today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about
how particularly men can move from feeling lost in their role as husbands, providers, fathers, into a role of servant leader in their partnership, one that feels purposeful, creative, and constructive. The result is that for many of us, men and women, there is a crisis of purpose occurring. Many men feel like they're failing at a game they don't understand. Many women feel like their men are failing at the game also. You are the perfect shaped key for the perfect shaped lock. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. I'm your host, Rich Heller, and today we are talking about manhood, joy, prosperity, and marriage. That's right. Manhood, joy, prosperity, and marriage. That's a lot for one episode, but let's see if this episode we can get down to 20 minutes, because the last few episodes have been kind of long, because this is a deep and intense subject and there's a lot of facets to it. And so if you've been listening along, I'm not going to be speaking another language to you here. You're going to have some clue what I'm talking about, and I will reference past episodes that you can listen to if you feel a little lost. But I think you're going to be able to keep up. I think you're going to be right there with us, because how many men feel like they are living a truly purposeful life? How many men truly feel like get up every day going, yeah, I know where I'm going. I know where I'm going for my family. I know where I'm going for me and my personal development and growth. I know where my work is taking me in these paths. I know the skills I want to develop that aren't being developed right now. And I can see how I'm going to continue and develop those skills so that I can become all of who I was meant to be. How many of us wake up like that every day? Well, I've got this going on as a monologue/dialogue in the back of my head. And I can tell you, I don't wake up like that every day. But every day I do better and better with it. And this episode is about helping you move from going through the motions of life to feeling like you are the perfect shaped key for the perfect shaped lock, that you were created as a unique, wonderful, vibrant creation that has a specific and beneficial purpose in the world, in your community, in your family, in your marriage, in your work, in your relationship to your higher power, whatever that is. That's what we're talking about today. So the traditional role of manhood, we covered a lot in the last episode. We were providers and protectors. And before the Great Depression, that was very true. Men very much were protectors before we moved to a society where there's a certain level of safety provided by the government. We'll just leave it at that. Marriage was about duty first, maybe love. Love second, though. And emotional connection, that might have been gravy for a lot of people. It wasn't something they worked at. And that's because the demands of life at that time were eat or be eaten, kill or be killed. Someone's got to help this family move forward, and it's going to be me. In the 1950s, really, that's post-World War II, that's when that started to change. That's when we really blossomed, in America at least, financially and in terms of productivity. But the attitude didn't change so much. And though we talk about love and we reach for love, I think many of us treat it as a luxury, or we're very immature about it. We're like, why am I not being loved? I think I'll trade this wife in for a new version. And that's what we call here at Rich in Relationship a transactional mindset. I think many of us develop a transactional mindset, and the transactional mindset very much lives in survival mode, right? Where we're going, all of us, is a transformational mindset. And transformation lives in the world of abundance, prosperity, joy, fulfillment, etc. Well, the reason why this model doesn't work, by the way, is the female counterpart's expectations have changed. Emotional safety and connection have now become very important because physical safety is much easier to attain than it was 100 years ago. And I'm not going to get into an argument about whether safety is an illusion or not. I actually believe that to some extent, safety is an illusion. right? Anytime you see power go out in a culture for a week or two, you see a reversion, a regression to old survival strategies that remind us of what our grandparents and great grandparents went through. But as long as there's power, as long as there's food, as long as the economy is moving forward, whether it's up or down, as long as we have jobs, as long as everything's working, it's a lot safer than it was. That's for sure. And because that's changed, emotional safety, which at one time was a luxury, is now something we all, well, most women want. And really, if we're honest, guys, you want that too, right? You just don't maybe know it. Like because we as men, most of us haven't been taught how to create emotional safety. We think that emotional safety, because it's equal, because there's equality, we think if our wife gets angry and yells at us, then because it's equality, we should yell at her. Right? It's equal. If you yell at me, I should be able to yell at you, right? But we know better than this. We know if she hits us, we probably shouldn't hit her. Like, because we just know that the bigger dog really doesn't bite the smaller dog unless it's absolutely necessary. And let's be honest, men physically are bigger dogs. And so if we know that's true, I want you to, we want to apply that concept to the emotional realm, but we'll get to that. So the result is that for many of us, men and women, there is a crisis of purpose occurring. Many men feel like they're failing at a game they don't understand. Many women feel like their men are failing at the game also. There's a pressure to be both traditional and modern, which leads to burnout, frustration, and resentment. And it shows up exactly in that example that I gave you about, emotional equality. If she yells at me, I should be able to yell at her. But emotionally, unconsciously, the way our brains are created, we all have parts of our brains that are looking for danger all the time. Our brains and our nervous system and our unconscious mind haven't completely caught up. They're still looking for danger. And so it's very easy for us, even though socially society is physically safer in a lot of ways, emotionally, it's very easy for us to slip back into that kind of emotional survival thinking that leads to fight, flight, or play dead. Are you feeling what I'm laying down here? And when men go to that space and they feel that they have permission to express their anger loudly as their wives are, they don't understand why the result is different. Typically, if your wife yells at you, it may be feel a little threatening and uncomfortable, but you're probably not going to be worried for your life. But I'm telling you that when you yell at your wife, a part of her actually does fear for her life because you're the bigger dog. It's unconscious, right? And I'm not telling you that's right or good. I'm just telling you this is how it is, right? In life, there's the animal part. Let's just call it the animal part. A lot of churches call it the world. There's the worldly view or the fleshly view. And what I like about the fleshly view is it acknowledges that we're creatures of instinct, and instincts are basically animal driven. And then there's higher thinking that we all have, human beings have, that animals don't. And our higher thinking tells us we're equal and we should be able to do the same things. But when we do the same things, we actually don't do them the same way. Men do not do anger the way women do anger, just as men don't do emotional connection the way women do emotional connection. We just don't do it the same way. And when we do anger in the way that women do anger, the response is survival driven on the woman's side, and it makes the relationship unsafe. I digress. So let's just stick with this worldly view versus spiritual view. And by spiritual view, spirituality we're going to define as connection. Worldly view, survival. And in many ways, survival and masculinity are associated, and connection and spirituality and femininity are connected. And I want you to get this. It's the reason why so many churches women are bringing men into churches is that the spirituality and connection are feminine principles. And at the same time, when men don't take the lead in those institutions, the organization is disempowered. So this is really, guys, this is really important what I'm going to lay down for you here. So there's worldly and spiritual, let's call it, or animal and stick with spiritual, worldly, animal, spiritual connection. There's also success on the worldly side versus prosperity on the connection side, or transactional on the animal worldly side versus transformational on the prosperity, connection, spirituality side. These are different ways of operating in life. Now, we naturally, I'm going to emphasize that word, naturally slip into a worldly, animal, instinctual, naturally slip into. The spiritual, prosperity, connection part is something that many of us need to work at. With a different part of our brain takes us there. We'll talk about that in another episode. But I want you to get that they're distinct. And very often where men get locked up is we embrace the tactical, transactional success model, which doesn't take into account the other part, which is also necessary. It's not that one is better than the other. It's that the two work best when they're together. And it's really interesting because from a brain perspective, whether you're a man or a woman, the part of our brain that's rational and where our conscious mind primarily lives, the reasoning, strategic part of our brain really needs to be in charge of the amygdala and the emotional part, but use the amygdala and the emotions as drivers to move forward without stuffing them or repressing them. And at the same time, if the rational part of the brain doesn't have connection and spirituality and prosperity and transformation as a goal, as the dominant goal, it fails. It's like one isn't better than the other. They need each other. These sides need each other. All right, I'm sorry, I'm getting way off track here. So let's get back on track. Let's talk about happiness. A lot of us think that we're working towards happiness, but are you really? The answer is no. You cannot be working towards happiness alone. Just like you can't be working towards success alone. You can succeed at work and succeed financially and lose your whole family. You can feel relatively happy and lose your whole family. And the reason is, if you're not, in order to grow, there has to be a tension between where you are and where you want to be. And any tension is defined as stress. There needs to be a stressor. Muscles, in order to grow, there needs to be a stress between the weight that you want to lift and what the muscle can actually lift. It's the tearing of the muscle, that stress, that makes the muscle stronger. Same thing happens emotionally. When we're moving towards a goal, there's a difference between where we are and where we want to be. The tearing that happens, the reconfiguration that happens as we move towards that goal, that's not happy feeling. That's what I want you to understand. Happiness, as we define it as human beings, is the absence of stress. So when we think that happiness and success are the goal, what that means is I'm making lots of money. We can go to Aruba. We can eat well. We can drink well. We can smoke a little something. We can have some sex. It's like that's happy, right? Stress free. But if we're not actually developing and growing, we can't truly feel fulfilled. And happiness without fulfillment is hollow. What we're looking for is joy. And joy is where we have times of happiness, we have times of stress, and we know that the stress and the happiness work together to give us fulfillment. Fulfillment means we're developing, we're growing all of who we are. We're using all of our talents. We're fulfilling our unique purpose. And that's where prosperity comes in over success. It is not unusual for men and women to get confused about prosperity. It is, prosperity. Billionaires have prosperity. Maybe, but prosperity is not just about money. In fact, it might not be about money at all. You could experience prosperity and have no money whatsoever. Prosperity is about feeling wealthy in all your areas of life, in your love life, in your purpose life, in your family life, with your children. Prosperity is a feeling of abundance in every aspect of yourself, that every aspect of who you are is being fulfilled. That is true prosperity. And yeah, it might come with $1 million or $1 billion, or it might not. It depends on what being fulfilled means to you. But when money becomes the central focus, when success is defined by survival-oriented stuff only, we can't feel fulfilled because we have this whole other side of ourselves. That's about connection. That's about spirituality. That's about prosperity. That's about joy. That's about development. That's about growth. We have these two sides, and only when they work together. This is, by the way, is this sounding familiar? If you've been listening to this podcast, the other side of this is when masculine and feminine learn to work together, we feel fulfilled. Same idea. So men have been taught that they must achieve in order to be valuable. And that's not untrue. The question is, what is it you are trying to achieve? We are taught that we need to achieve in order to have value because our wiring is goal-oriented. Achievement is the attainment of the goal. The problem is when we work with a success model and we reach the goal, we need more success. We need more goal. And what we're missing is that somewhere along the line, success didn't include transformation. It didn't include personal fulfillment. It didn't include developing new skills, old skills, the weaving together of all the parts of ourselves. We have a fear of failure if we don't achieve. But the problem is, in the worldly, survivalistic, animal, instinct-driven success model, you can never really achieve. There's always more to achieve. We've been taught that we need external validation because we live in a society that validates material success, that holds it up. We export this around the world. Look at our movies. But it doesn't teach men in particular how to succeed in relationships. And it's not doing a great job with women either, if we're honest. There's a lack of guidance. There's a lack of leadership. This podcast is here to fill that gap. Learning what true joy and prosperity look like in marriage is first about finding out what's missing in me. It's not about them. And when I start to fulfill what's missing in me, if the relationship still isn't working, then it's something to be reconsidered. But I got to clean up my side of the street first. First, clean up my mess. And then what's the hole within me that she will never be able to fill? We all have one. Some people call it a God-shaped hole. So a man spends 20 years chasing career success, but he wakes up one day to find his marriage crumbling and wonders, how did I get here? How often had we heard this story? How many times have you woken up asking yourself that question? I want you to know that I went through that 7 years ago. One day I woke up and said, how did I get here? Something's missing. And I reached out for help. I submitted myself for help. I accepted that I didn't have the answer, and I got that help. And 7 years later, I have a prosperous and abundant life and marriage and family. I'm not president of the United States with $6 billion, nor am I his trusty sidekick, who's the richest man in the world. But I can tell you, I would not trade my life for theirs, ever. Because what I have is fulfilling more and more aspects of who I am and helping my wife to do the same. What I have is a marriage based on mutual shared goals and coordinated communication so that we can continue to honor one another and our relationship and fulfill those goals and grow in our sense of purpose and prosperity and joy. Leadership still matters, and here's why. As we explored in previous episodes, brains that float in testosterone are hardwired to be linear. Women can lead, absolutely, and should lead at times. In fact, in a healthy relationship, there are times when the feminine needs to be in charge, and there are times when the masculine needs to be in charge. Whether you are a man or a woman, there's a time when the feminine needs to be in charge and when the masculine needs to be in charge. But we need to understand both aspects of masculine and feminine in order to do that. And we need to know when to honor those parts of ourselves or those parts of our partners, right? And the truth is that when the feminine needs to be in charge, if you're a man married to a woman, the chances are she's going to do it better than you because she's got a brain that floats in estrogen and was developed to deal with that better than yours. I'm not saying you can't, and I'm not saying she can't when the masculine needs to be in charge. I'm not saying she can't step in a masculine way. It just won't be the same way that you would do it. And we need to take leadership in our marriages without taking over. We are collaborating with our partners. We have a shared vision, and we are dependent on them to reel us in when we get too linear, just as they're dependent on us to reel them in when they get too ecological. We're actually learning from one another. They're helping us to discover our femininity, and we are helping them to discover their masculinity. That's the deal. They are helping us to unfold and to let go of the limitations that we absorb from our parents, and we are doing the same for them. Or those limitations are meeting in constant conflict, which is painful, or we are avoiding communication because we're worried that those things are going to come into conflict. I'm going to tell you that everybody I work with has that going on. They don't know how to deal with that old stuff, those old emotions, those old beliefs, assumptions, whatever you want to call them, that were implanted in them by their parents. And they had doing a perfect destructive dance, the two of them, with their implanted assumptions and beliefs and old emotions. And the reason why they're doing a perfect dance and having that stress is supposed to call forth anything that it's time to let go of. And truthfully, because it's lodged in the unconscious mind, it's almost impossible to let go of it on your own. In fact, I would say it is impossible for you to let go of it on your own. Always, you will need outside help with the unconscious mind, period. I do. Everyone I know does. That's just how it is. Imagine a man who makes clear, confident decisions about his family's future, but always takes his wife's input into account. Imagine a man whose clear, confident decision is that he's going to allow his wife to lead when they go to a party. Imagine a man whose clear, confident decision is that his leadership at that party is going to be to show up as in a supporting role, to back her up, to stand for her when someone crosses a boundary with her in a masculine way. That would be taking the lead, by the way. But then give the lead back to her once safety has been reestablished. Imagine what it's like to be that man. You can be that man. But there's a roadmap to joy, prosperity, and marriage, and it works. If you want to win in marriage, you need a strategy for lasting success. You need to reclaim your masculine identity, like define your values, your principles, and purpose. You may need to let go of some old stuff to do that, because a lot of what we're calling toxic masculinity is old stuff that's being expressed through principles. And when we let go of the old stuff, the principles find a different kind of expression. You may need to align your actions with what matters. You may need to lead with strength and flexibility, letting her lead when the time is appropriate. You may need to find the right brotherhood. Even though we tend to be individual operators, the truth is that when we find a pack of men who are moving in the same direction, have the same goal, we can empower one another. We can call each other out. There is a friend who is closer than a brother. And that, my friends, is how iron sharpens iron. And so I'm offering you the opportunity to join one of the small groups that are forming here at Rich in Relationship. They're cost effective, they're impactful, and they're going to help you get back on the road to prosperity and joy and connection and a marriage that works, helping you to rebuild trust. If you want to know more, go to richinrelationship.com or contact me directly, rich@richinrelationship.com. And in the meantime, I want you to have an amazing day and an awesome tomorrow.